You guys seem further back. Is it?
It's good.
Are you afraid of us?
I like the logo.
Videotaping too.
How you doing?
Oh, Alderman.
Mayor.
Sir, how are you?
Whoa.
Let's call this meeting to order. Roll call, please.
Alderman Grace,
Here.
Fallberg,
Here.
Fetterman, Fiore,
Here.
Levy, Lenari, Peterson,
Here.
Slavin.
Here. Okay. Any questions on the minutes? All right. We'll go down to appointments really quickly. We'll have that discussion right away. Pension, we got Dennis Baker and Dave Morey. Dave is on there now? Wait,
They're both on there now, aren't they? Or is Dave Moore
is Dave Moore in the police?
Fire.
Yes. Send Paul.
He is on both.
Yeah.
Okay.
They're putting
Dennis
out
Baker will be on both.
any crap like they're putting
And
into.
then, for the plan commission, Scott and I met with Tony Bellotti.
Could you test your microphone? I'm sorry.
You mean people want live?
There you go.
Dam.
All right.
That creates a
All right.
Anybody else? Your microphones are pointing away from you.
Huh?
Like, I think that might be pointing.
Every single one of them.
I'm sorry, we only have one between the two of us. It's not within the budget to go,
That's right.
I'll be signing for the alderman to my left tonight.
All right. Plan commission, we are short one member. We did have someone apply. Tony, you want to come up, introduce yourself, please? Right, yeah, Scott and I had the opportunity to meet with him earlier, was it last week?
Yes.
So take it away. Tell us why you want to be a member of the plan commission.
Well, I'm
And you're-
a relatively new,
Could you adjust the mic?
sure. Okay, not toward you, all right. Yes, having become a resident of Highwood just in the past 6 months, from Highland Park, basically, I'm always involved in the community where I lived. I've been on the Plan Commission in Highland Park most recently. Prior to that, I was on what was its Environmental Commission, then it became the Natural Resources Commission. I spent 5 years on the East Skokie Drainage District. And I'm active in other organizations, Society of American Military Engineers, which involves some folks from Great Lakes and from Fort Sheridan. I've now been invited to be on the Mosquito Abatement District, so I try to keep my hand involved in a
Is
lot
that a
of
move
things
up?
because I don't know. Do you see any mosquitoes in here?
Take a swat at it.
Right.
And I think there was no one representing Highwood that way on the district, although that's one of the 5 municipalities.
We are one of them, yeah.
Any event, I'm very much a fan of Highwood, and I'm learning more and more about it, and hope I can serve the community in this regard.
Does anybody have any questions? You know, we talked a little bit about some of the developments that we were going through and things that the planning would be seeing in the upcoming future. Tony, to my recollection, was very supportive and looking forward to learning more about them and how it would fit with Highwood. Does anybody have questions to that effect?
We have enough, we have
I don't
enough
know.
people to review things on both. I think we are a couple short on both of them, and thought just
This
from
is
the background, the
this planning one will be
a
full
little
now. Well, I think the question we had was where we're going to combine the two,
better. Mhm.
and that we have to do at the next
We have to do prior, well, I'll let,
It would be
Finish this out
effective the
already.
beginning of the next fiscal year.
Okay.
so if you pass it within the next 6 weeks, 8 weeks, then it'll take effect as of May 1st.
And I've mentioned that, we've talked to that
Yes.
too in the pre-session
So
as
we
well.
could put that on the agenda?
Yes.
Do we need 2 guys?
We just
We'll
got,
just
put it on,
Put it
yeah.
on if the
2
group is
guys.
interested in doing that, we can
Yeah.
get it that on a February meeting.
Or people.
2 aldermen people. Anyways, so was it regress, digress?
Digress.
We did both. Any
I-
questions?
No, I just want to say thank you for doing that, and it sounds like you bring a really nice background and experience, so hopefully we'll be benefactors of that, so it's really nice.
Okay, well,
Thank
I
you.
hope to do some good here, yeah.
Yeah, thank you. And we'll be voting on that a little bit after 7:30.
Okay.
All right, thank you for coming this evening.
So we're done with 3-1 through 3-3.
Alderman to the Finance Committee. You know, I asked a few, no one seemed to be jumping up and down on the opportunity. That's okay, I understand. Does someone really want to, I know Mike said, well, I can. Does anyone really,
Found out the time.
right, does anyone want to be on the Finance? We have 2 right now. It is a crucial, especially since we're going through budget process here going forward. Does anyone really want to do it? We do need one more
I
person.
promise this will be the most interesting committee to be on over the next year.
I said I
I
would do
think
it,
us on the long-term planning committee would take on Rochette's.
I said I would do it out of default if we needed a body, because it's not necessarily what I consider to be my strongest suit.
And that
but-
wasn't right, and I appreciate that that wasn't, I thought,
So
well,
I'd rather somebody else like I say, step forward, and I just push my chair back, and there's Chris.
I totally
But
understand.
if we need to put a body on there,
Well, we have two on there now. And I think, Chris and Andy, and it was felt that maybe we should have three, just for the smell test, there's three,
Makes
two,
life a lot easier for the members to have three.
in case one can't.
Well, I'm not gonna be up for re-election, so I don't think it would be prudent to have the person on it that's
Good
gonna be on
answer.
there to turn around and be off. But otherwise, I would. No, if I-
5 months.
Yeah.
Matt said absolutely not. So,
Well, there are
Mike?
things, maybe you could just go over a couple of the duties very quickly and some of the things we're going over. Just
well,
the-
the duties will be, they're what, probably monthly meetings is really what we're looking at least. Probably more intense here in the short term with the budget process going on. The duties are,
Absolutely, reviewing the draft budget, so right now we're looking at different revenues and also different cuts to programs. We're looking at the audit and different comments, so we're trying to improve our audit comments over the next year. Our collection methods are gonna be an item on the next agenda, but really it's that budget right now and our 3 to 5 year strategic plan for the programs we're gonna.
and as we have developments that come to ask money from the TIF, it'll be the finance committee and with the city manager, they'll find if it's viable, those
What days
funds.
and times?
We don't have set days and times as of yet. We're trying to select days and times that work for everybody. Right now, we have a meeting scheduled for 3 PM on Friday.
That's too early.
That will likely not be our regular time.
Yeah, that's, at this point in time, we've had
If it's,
2 meetings.
We'll work with any volunteer
You've had
on
2
on
meetings.
those dates and times.
Yeah, but they've been good meetings, though.
Yeah.
First one, they met with oh, David was here, I don't see him right now.
I think this one, we're trying to work around some schedule conflicts.
Yeah, I could do it, but
And you're already on the long term, which is a big one, and you okay with that? Mike, you wanna
Well,
do it?
I'm okay with it, but I 3 o'clock I know can do. I mean, it interferes with work, so I mean,
I
if
prefer
it's,
Mr. Fiore.
if it's at but if it's after 4:30, 5 o'clock, I'm all right. But not, I know can do 3 o'clock.
Okay.
So, I mean, moving forward, if there's a meeting after, some other,
You all right with that? Yep.
Yeah.
It's not a problem.
Okay, so Mike,
that's fine,
congratulations.
but not after, I mean, it'll have to be after 5 or whatever.
Yeah, normal work hours.
That's fine.
Committee, who's the third on the long-term planning?
I was 3.
I know, that's what I'm saying. Who's the third, though, going to be?
Pick Matt.
Well, yeah, Matt, we'll put Matt on there.
Okay.
I'd go on 3 and 3. 3 on one side.
Right,
Oh,
that,
you want me, you want man on now?
Not yet.
no, you're not out yet.
all
No,
right.
have him,
Transition?
transition.
He should be going to the meetings. All right, thank you very much. Any questions on the bills?
Yes.
Okay.
Without a runner.
Tell him I'll get down, I'm going.
It's more of a procedural thing. I mean, why is there so many Scapolettis? I mean, what's he waiting for, the end of the year to
Like
pay
past
the bill?
Swayze's.
We were surprised to see those also. He did wait till the very end of the year and provided a very detailed list of all the things that they did this year.
Well,
So
yeah, I'm not denying
It's,
that he did, but it's kind of
Landscaper
strange
who
to
took
just
over
bill
the
at the end of
public.
the year.
we were a little surprised too. We were happy to see that there was money budgeted and it fell well within our budget.
Okay.
Oh, that's our landscape.
Well,
So moving forward, if he continues to do it, will he bill in a proper,
we can ask him to do that on a more regular basis.
okay.
Most vendors would be
I mean,
happy
he
to.
did a great job. I
do
got
that.
nothing against that. It's just like, just popped up all together at once.
Way of doing it. but-
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, for his cash flow, I mean, he's paying his employees.
Any other questions on any other bills here? Seem pretty straightforward. How often do we codify stuff at Sterling Codifiers? I think we're way behind schedule for a while. Are we still
Yeah,
behind?
they're way behind.
We were behind for a while and we were updated as of October, November. Somewhere in there where we sent them a large number of things.
Oh, really? We're caught up? Because I know, Andy, you were keeping track of that for a while.
Okay.
We're still backed up a little bit? Yeah, I would imagine.
Mayor, I have one last thing.
Oh, absolutely.
It's more of a, not a bill, but it's a procedure. I'm just, so Scott, how do we, okay, I see the, one for, an invoice here for Bex and one for, Ireland. How do we determine, who gets what?
I'm sorry, for which two?
There's one for Bex Heating and one for Ireland Heating and Air Conditioning. So how do we
select one as
decide
opposed to another?
where we go, or how we do it?
Some of those vendors that we ordinarily use, I'm not completely sure how we selected one or the other. I can come back and report on those, Bex and Ireland.
Is Ireland in Highwood?
No, that's why I asked.
Yeah, that's probably why, okay.
Maybe someone's not available to call the other person.
Yeah, that might be it.
But I can have that at the next meeting.
Chief, do you know how you chose Ireland Heating? They chose Ireland Heating?
I've dealt with him in the past.
Okay.
He's very fair price. We had no heat, and he could get out there immediately.
Okay. So it's more of an emergency situation,
It
just head
was,
out
we
there?
had no heat. Two of our furnaces went down within days of each other.
It's not a good thing.
They couldn't just build a fire.
Okay. And then, wait, Good Impressions is back on here again. This is $1,000 in hats now?
No, I can clarify that.
Okay.
So, I understand there was also a question last week. It's actually the same payment. So
Okay.
the way that it worked was, that should have been cut as a manual check out of the 2% fund. And when we were doing our final review before cutting the checks, I had to pull it off of the last list. And the way that the software system works, it reissued it to you guys. So it's the same payment. It's not
Okay.
another payment. For
Yeah,
the
you
same
missed it there
amount.
for
It
hats.
just
Gotcha.
showed up again in the system because that's how the software works, so.
No.
Thank you.
Yes, but, yeah, that's exactly what I'm embroidered. Okay,
That's a lot of hats.
that's a lot of hats.
About $25
Good hats.
a hat.
How much?
Expensive hats.
Yeah, it's about right. I mean, $30?
25, 30?
I don't know. All right, 6.1, new business. Staff report on the water main break.
Yes.
First, staff did a good job of getting that fixed, up running, communicated. It
Absolutely.
was pretty crazy.
The, on the water main break last week, staff really exhibited a lot of effort and really did a great job responding to an emergency that really very few people see in their careers, if at all. That goes really for elected officials, staff, and residents who were very understanding and patient, trying to get the word out to their neighbors. Now, even though I feel like our response was very good, when you have a situation like this, is a great time to self-evaluate afterwards. See where you did well, where you can improve, and really just take a look at all the events surrounding. So we worked on this report. It's in draft form now, because there are still a lot of answers that we're really looking for. One of those items is we've sent the pipe out to the Ductile Iron Research Association to determine why there was a break. So we've done a few things like that that we're waiting on, plus any additional feedback that we can get from tonight's meeting. So as we're going through this, the report talks a little bit why water mains break. Originally, we thought that the water main may have broken. This time of year, we see a lot of water main breaks because of weather fluctuations. We had below zero temperatures in days leading up to that, and as you quickly warm up, you'll see a lot of water main breaks. So that's what we thought it may have been. The other reason why you see breaks is major spikes in pressure. So the water hammer effect, if you hear about a water main breaking because a hydrant was closed too quickly, that's because as you stop flow on one end, that water stops and then pushes back, and you've got a lot of pressure in small sections of main. You could tell by the break in this main that this was due to a spike in pressure.
Do we know what the event was that stopped the flow somewhere that caused the water hammer?
We don't know. We're looking around. There could have been a lot of again, you could have that event if there's a fire hydrant. You could also have that if there's a valve that's closed very quickly. And we did not have one of those on our own water main system, but if one of the business owners surrounding there closed the valve very quickly, you may have something like this. But I think we'll be able to determine a little more once we get the pipe back to really understand, was this a lot of pressure? And it sounds like it was a great deal of pressure, because a person that's been working in the field for 25 years said that this was an amount of pressure that he's never seen before with this
So
break in the pipe.
If I own ABC business downtown, and just like my house has a I just have a little valve, I just turn it on and off, I do that. If I turn mine off, that can have a repercussion like this in the entire system?
A valve, almost like within your own house or something like that, is probably too small.
Not my
to do
house, but I
something
mean,
like that.
I'm talking about in a business though. So their ability just to shut off their water can cause a
To
water
the
hammer like
building,
this?
they shut off to the building.
It depends on how big the valve is and how much water pressure is going through there.
It's impossible.
Are we taking a look at the actual water plant itself?
I just,
The cost?
the reason I raise it is if that's true, and again, this gets back to the source, but if that's the truth, maybe if the size of a building, they shouldn't have that capability, because if that shut-off can cause this amount of damage and affect the entire city, they shouldn't be able to
But I don't
single-handedly.
think that's the case. I don't think a building can do that. And number one, your building has to have the ability to shut off the water, because if they have a break within their own
Well,
building.
your biggest.
No, but you call the
Absolutely.
city.
Absolutely.
Getting people there in a matter of time, you don't
Well,
have damage.
you know what, I'm gonna go the other way on this one. Rather than have an individual back and shut
I
off
just don't,
the
well,
city
I
for the
think we're
water.
jumping to conclusions.
No, I'm not
Correct,
ju-
and
all I'm saying
that's
is-
what I'm trying to say is, it could have been a lot of these different things. I don't want anyone to jump to a conclusion and say that it's a valve or a hydrant or anything else. I'm just trying to talk about water hammer in general and talk about things that we look at when some of these
We are
things
looking
happen.
into it, they are looking into it to find out what happened.
Okay,
though,
so
it
that's
doesn't
all I'm
happen
saying
again.
is if that becomes a source.
I never
then
thought
think we
about the
need
water plant, though.
Correct.
To figure that out.
Well, that's where the main source was coming from.
We have started looking at that, and there were a couple of different operational procedures with the water plant that we questioned. Those did not happen. So really, as we send the pipe to experts, they'll be able to tell us if they've ever seen anything like this before, people that can really try to determine what happened. So these are all things that we're working on and trying to do this, but conceptually, at least we know that there was a large spike in pressure on the pipe.
Of course, we had the SCADA system in.
2 days earlier.
Is it in-
We've had the,
It's in now,
Oh, it finally is.
is it?
the SCADA system, it had been scheduled to go in there 2 or 3 weeks prior. We had scheduled it for that specific Thursday. The SCADA system wouldn't have prevented the water system from running out. The SCADA system would have just been an advanced water system.
Notified us that it
It would
was
have
running
notified
out.
us that it was running out. So we still would have run out of water. We just would have
No.
known.
Did we find out why we ran out of water?
Yes.
See that in the report. I understand that we had the reserves. I understand why it wasn't being filled up because the pipe broke, but we had sufficient amount.
It came back from
Correct.
out
What-
water tower.
Yeah, it dropped down from the tower.
So
Oh, that's what happened?
So we had 37 feet of water prior to, which is about 2 days worth of water. So when we checked in initially as the break was happening, we thought we had plenty of water. What you do at that point is you start turning valves to close off that section
Oh,
of the
so
water.
when that broke and it was here, then this just poured back.
Correct. And if you have a valve over in the correct spot that closes properly, then you don't lose that water.
Okay.
What we need to do now is, because we went out there and closed valves in different sections, and that water may or may not have held. Those valves may or may not have held.
When we close valves, is that all manually? In other words, you have to send a person out there and you have to do it by hand, or is it something that, okay, so it is manual?
It is manual. Now what happens is someone goes out and closes that valve. Now even once you close the valve, water is still gonna continue to go through the system because there's still a certain amount of water. So you can close the valve and then go back to the site, and 15 minutes later, water still may be coming out. So you have to continually check that and see, okay, has the water stopped? Now, if the water is still coming and maybe a certain amount of time after you still see it coming, you know that that valve didn't work and you have to go out and find another valve that's closer between the two. Somewhere along the way, because it was such a large break on a 12-inch main, we had trouble doing that. So that's why I'll skip ahead to the recommendations quickly.
that's-
If you do we could do a study on our valves, and you have a company that goes out and says, all right, these valves work and these valves don't. We do have trouble because of some of the age of our system on, first off, locating our valves. Our Atlas maps might say that there's a valve on Sheridan and Webster, but that can be a large area to try to find a valve. Maybe it's been buried in something. Maybe it's in a place where 20 years ago it worked great, but you can't find it now. So it might take you 20 minutes once you even go out to a site to find these valves. You also have to be very careful. Once we got to a very close endpoint, we were careful and we're going to run out of water. And if you close the valves at that point, your next risk is if you close the valve and break it in the off position, you then essentially have another water main break that you have to go and fix prior to filling up the other station, because we don't have a second interconnect. And that's one of the other recommendations we have now, is there's an opportunity to start another interconnect somewhere
On the
else.
breaking of the valve though, closing, that's, I guess that's a risk you run every time you do it, but is that just seen in our system because they're so old, that's more of a risk than anywhere else? I mean, it seems to me you should be able to close and open these valves without having to worry about them being breaking open, breaking closed.
That's something
Connection from the
everywhere.
plant to the
Okay.
water tower is a newer, it's a younger.
It's a pipe that's in very good condition with no corrosion. It's really some of our best infrastructure. But many towns will have studies on their valves conducted on a very regular basis, or some of them will even buy machines to be able to do this themselves, to go and test their valves on a regular basis to make sure they work.
This is where I really don't know much about the water system at all, how this works. Is it possible, the SCADA system measures the pressure and all that, but is there a possibility to do remote monitoring on the valves themselves to see how they're working as well, or is that either one, not possible, or just
I've never heard of a valve.
It's
and
just-
a valve is really kind of just almost like a close off on it. It's not like a computer like our water plant or our water tower where you measure different things.
Okay, so it's
very
just
similar to the way you
just
turn
the
off
crank, so
water
it
tower.
either simple works. Okay, so it seems to me that recommendation I think is a good idea to go out and get an estimate that go
yeah.
through and get that process done. I think it's very important that we have.
Do we know what
Yeah.
valves
Map.
were supposedly
Exactly.
gone after and closed?
Yes,
And those line up going to the water tower?
yes.
And the other interconnect would go from the water plant?
We have a potential second interconnect. It's close to the Starbucks on the north side of town.
Okay.
There's it's near a birdhouse over on the Fort Sheridan side of the road, where we're
yeah.
not too far away from the Highland Park system. So I have a meeting tomorrow morning at Highland Park at 10 a.m. to discuss what we can do
I know
to
exactly.
try to connect the two systems.
And that's just less disruptive up there potentially?
Well, it's just another side of town. So let's say that you have working valves and you can shut off the valve close to that water main break. Then you should be able to get enough pressure from the Highland Park interconnect, where if we have a quick drop in water pressure, we can fill that tower again from the opposite direction instead of relying just on this main transmission line. There should be some benefit for Highland Park wanting to do this also, because they're on a dead-end loop in their own water system over in their
The
Fort
north
Sheridan
end?
area. So if their water system ever goes out in that same manner, we should be able to assist them with water and keeping pressure to them so they don't face a similar situation.
I think, just in general, I think the report was great. I think you did a great job. I think everybody you mentioned in the report did a good job. I would follow up on the recommendations. I think you did a good job in a tough situation. So,
I think it goes to show the infrastructure issues we have. It didn't cause the break, but because of the
makes you
infrastructure
question.
issues, it caused the loss of all the water. So,
So really with those next steps, what we're hoping is at the next meeting to have a recommendation for a study on the valves, and
Great.
also at least some timeline and general cost info for the Highwood, or for the Highland Park interconnect. Just one more thing before going on, I did want to touch on communications also, which I think went very well externally, but there are always ways to improve those. One thing that we discussed a little bit internally at a staff meeting, the mayor was present for that one as well, is what's the best way of communicating? I received notification from Mayor Picaro, Alderman Lenari, and Alderman Peterson almost all at the exact same time. And when I received that phone call, I got information and got back to them very quickly, and then called Adrian to come back into the office. And in doing so, when you're calling those people back that called you first, you're almost delaying getting staff on some of those things at a certain point. So there are some different things, and we're working on emergency plans and communication structures on how to do those a little faster. We're also working on the social media and Facebook page and Twitter and things like that.
Can we look at a text plan,
Yeah,
at least for within the staff and council, especially when you're not, like, for example,
Mhm.
most of my emails are connected to my phone. My city email is not. So I'm not gonna see it. Besides that, you know, it took a little while because you had one report where we had a water break, but then from there on, you don't see anything until after the fact. And obviously, we're getting calls in between. To be able to have the council to have some sort of update on a regular basis via text, so we have an idea, because I'm halfway across the country, and I'm not gonna be able to respond to.
Yeah.
Yeah, couldn't we capture people's cell phone numbers if they wanted to sign up? And
They
they,
have that in the system already.
The system already?
Have some
I'm
of
talking,
that.
I'm talking internally
This sounds familiar.
I'm talking internally for the staff and council.
Right, an internal
update.
loop of,
Yes.
yeah, feed, where you type one, it goes to every, I mean, that's not that, probably,
No, we can do some of that. We have to be a little careful with Open Meetings Act and some things like that, but yeah,
That's
we
an
can definitely do
emergency.
something like that.
That's an emergency, that can't be.
but I think we need a better.
as long as we don't
system.
reply, it says, you know,
We don't reply or do things like
Right.
that, yeah.
just don't dialogue on it, say, just a one-way text. That's a great idea, though. You know, I'm sure you can set up on your phone on groups and just,
Yeah, I mean, I wasn't aware that I could sign up somewhere to receive emergency communication like that in Highwood, so.
Well,
shame.
a lot of people were, Andy with his email, he made a
doesn't
lot of
get its
people
water
aware.
bill, does he?
Other
Yeah, but that's too
people
late,
started
though.
making
I mean, that's,
people aware.
what do you do beforehand?
You had Facebook, well, sometimes it takes, as Scott said, it takes incidents
Right.
such as this to really see where the issues are and where they lie. So,
It's almost worth putting an ad into two papers saying,
Okay, but
hey,
now when we do the reverse 911, some people even
don't get it.
won't even get it in general, even with if they don't have a landline.
I would wonder if the landmark, if we can get them, you know,
There's
to
too many, it's
write-
fragmented.
No, but we need to take advantage of this because of the situation that we're having with our 911 fund. If we inform the community now, that,
Right.
now how do we communicate that properly without,
Landmark, yeah.
Yeah, I know what you're saying. I mean,
See, I'm wondering, Scott, can we reach out to the landmark paper, which I think people are doing a pretty good job of?
Elise can do that.
Yeah, well, maybe
yeah,
Elise
'cause
or
she'll
whomever reach
go to
out.
all the papers, yes.
Yeah, but
Just
at
have
least
them
the
sign up.
local paper, the Highland Park Highwood Landmark
Landmark
Edition.
goes to everyone's home.
Right, it gets delivered to everybody's home every Thursday or whatever it is. That would be nice if we can get them to at least put, sign up now for Highwood emergency, text
And just
broadcasting, whatever.
One other thing on the.
it was on the
communication.
water bills a few months ago.
You know what, I agree, it's a
No
good
one
place
sees
to
it,
put
but-
it, but I pay my water bill. and I
One
know.
other thing on the communication point, for example, the patch, they came out today saying that, with this happening, we are now putting money into the water system where, in fact, we've already been
The patch said
planning
that?
Yes, they incorrectly,
Okay.
Like it's a reactive,
yes, it wasn't, in the case where we've been working on this for how long and getting all this stuff together.
maybe the SCADA system did this, with, they were testing some stuff and,
No.
damn. I like your water.
Is there a risk mitigation from a fire perspective?
Yeah, that's, Chief is-
Chief Solberg handled that one. And would you like to go over the water tanks that you secured?
Well, what I did is I notified our dispatch center that if anything should occur, to start in 2 tankers. The closest one is Long Grove, and the next closest is either Countryside or Prospect Heights. So they would start in 2 tankers right away. Long Grove did offer us, if we needed, to put a tanker in our station overnight in case
that was
we
nice.
saw the need. I said, well, we'll play it by ear and see what happens. We were lucky, but we were able to secure those type of resources in the event. Also, Countryside has a hose tender that carries almost a mile of 5-inch hose. So if we needed to, if they hit Highland Park's water system or Lake Forest, we could do that also.
Wow.
That'd be wild.
I think we're only a mile.
Also, we met with 112 today, and they're very complimentary with the way you handled it also, Chief. Thank you.
Thank you.
All set with the water main break? All right. Next two.
Wait.
Oh, yeah.
The pipe itself. I mean, if it's 20 years old and it's supposed to last 100 years,
That's what we're waiting the answer for.
We'll wait on the answer for that.
I mean, the guy who took it out said he's never seen a 6-foot
Yeah,
hole.
I read the memo,
like
yeah.
this before.
Mhm.
He said he had geysers of 8 to 10 feet at one point.
And the pipe was in such new condition that the name of the contractor was still painted on it. It's
We send them the bill.
It's,
You missed the spot.
it's very interesting. They also said that the installation looked like it was correct. So this is something that the best experts on ductile iron pipe are gonna look at, and,
We'll be in the record
See.
books, huh?
yeah,
All right,
definitely report back.
thank you. Any other questions? Gart, memorandum understanding 6.2. We do have Gart here this evening to answer any questions that we have. There he is back there. Last, 2 weeks ago, we had mentioned that we were gonna get the memorandum, but take a look at it again in February, if I'm not mistaken. Is that correct?
That's correct. Last meeting, discussed with the council the request from GART on the memorandum of understanding, and they'd like to extend it from 6 months to 1 year.
Okay.
When we said that, some council members wanted to talk with GART more directly, had questions about the development itself, or wanted really them to answer some of those questions.
See,
The time and energy.
Yeah, come on up, please. And I think the concern, and we sort of mentioned it in this, we had a meeting this evening, earlier, that's okay, no. This afternoon, we had 4 of the landowners present, as well as Scott, myself, and GART Partners was there. The meeting went well for some seemed to be stone cold faced, that was pretty interesting. But as I had mentioned, there seemed to be support for the MOU. The biggest concern we had as a council is just timing, and it all comes down to timing, and your timing, and for us, this is new, so.
Mayor, one
Yeah.
more thing, just to let everyone know, Matt Fetterman, Alderman Fetterman, also, he wanted to call in on this, so he's on the phone, correct?
No, he did not.
He did not participate, all right, I'm sorry.
Regular meeting anyway.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Sir,
Doug Johnson from GAR Partners. How are you? Good
good.
to see all you tonight.
So Doug, I'm just gonna start off here. We want to continue your memorandum of understanding. Help us understand why, or where you are in the process, why you think you need, what think you can accomplish within the 6 months that you were given, and why you feel you need more time. Would that a good base for right now to hear what they have to say?
Well, we've been through this a number of times and are currently involved in other redevelopment projects. One most notable one is in Fox River Grove, where we are at the final stages of having 11 similar type properties signed under contract. We have 8 of 11, and we will shortly have the rest of them. At that point in time, once you have all of the properties under contract, is the time when you can begin your discussions with the city with respect to all that's going to be included in the TIF agreement, which we know has to be signed. That process typically takes 3-4 months just in negotiation for that document. When we originally approached Highwood, we had suggested a year that we needed to accomplish what we needed to. And at that point in time, Highwood decided that you would grant us the opportunity to present our development to you, but you wanted to cut it back to 6 months. Well, we knew that that wasn't going to be enough, but then we also said to ourselves, well, at the end of 6 months, we're going to know whether or not we have a project and whether we want to push to go forward on it. Well, we've been working diligently with the landowners and with some of the aldermen and the city officials, and we feel as if we are close enough now to say that, yes, we are going to accomplish this assemblage, and that, yeah, there's still some question marks out there in terms of a particular landowner or two, but we feel as if we're very, very close with the majority of the landowners, that we can safely say that with our combined effort, the city and our private partnership, that we can accomplish this. Some of the remaining questions are some of the final numbers that are going to go into our presentation and our TIF application. Once we make that application, it typically takes somewhere around 3 to 4 months to get through that document, with the assistance of your TIF consultants and your city attorney, and our attorneys and TIF consultants. Sometimes that doesn't move quite as quickly as the city might want it to move, or we might want it to move, but they do eventually get done with enough prodding. So we feel as if we will be able to accomplish that. So we're just looking for your blessing, and that you feel as if we have demonstrated our resolve in moving forward. So we're here to say, let's continue working together, and that the vision that you have and we have will come to reality. So I'm here to answer any questions that you might have where we are in the process. I can answer some questions up front that I know some of you will have. Do we know what this is going to look like? No, we have some ideas, but ultimately what it's going to look like, it's going to look like what the city and the constituents want it to look like. So we will be working closely hand in hand with your planners, your design people, our architects, etc., and your review committee. And we'll eventually, I believe, come to an agreement as to what should be built here for Highwood. We also are very sensitive to know that this is a gateway project to the redevelopment of the rest of the downtown area. So we want to make sure that we have the proper input from everyone, and everyone's comfortable going forward, because it's going to set the stage for future development in Highwood. So we're very sensitive to that, and we feel as if we'll make good partners for the city to continue forward. So other than that, I would like to, ask what other concerns or any other questions you might have at this time.
Thank you. First question. This is the first I've heard of TIF out of this development. Based on TIF, how much TIF are you looking for, and do you need that to make this project?
We absolutely need TIF participation to make this project work.
Have you looked at our TIF and what we have available?
Yes, I did. And that is something that, we need to make adjustments to going forward. We have always maintained that we were going to require some TIF help since day one. So I'm sorry if you didn't, you weren't informed of that.
I'm just not aware of enough TIF to make.
There may not be any left.
What happens sometimes with developments of many different sizes is you don't necessarily provide money from what's in the TIF fund, but you hire TIF consultants, where if the project is going to increase land value by a certain amount, then you agree to pay them a certain amount over years as the TIF increases due to the size of the
Based on income of,
I know we're looking for a TIF extension and all that kind of stuff. But
Yeah.
Right.
So that all works hand in hand with what we're doing.
so they would only get, the amount we could possibly give would be the increment that they could provide through their building and sales tax.
Yeah, it wouldn't be advisable to ever go higher than
right.
what the development would bring in the
how
first
many
place.
landowners were not at the meeting?
Three. You said four.
No.
There were
No, there
four
were
there.
four there.
Yeah, so the three weren't there.
No,
No, they were all there.
they were all there.
I thought there's seven.
All the landowners were there, including the city. There's 4 landowners, plus the city property.
The city. It's,
Might be 7 parcels, so it might include the Bocce parcel and 2
Never
city
mind.
parcels,
Yeah,
maybe.
yeah, Gotcha.
yeah, all 4 were there, and it was an interesting dynamic to see them interact. Some are on board, some are maybe, working their way towards that way.
Well, as we predict in scenarios like this, this is not as if there was a piece of property on the market for sale, and we came in and put it under contract, and we're coming to you saying, hey, this is what we think belongs here. This is part of your overall plan for the redevelopment of your downtown area. We identified this parcel within that overall plan that you've devised to begin the phase 1 development of your redevelopment of your entire downtown area. Unfortunately, sometimes you need to approach people that own property that may or may not be interested in selling at that time. So we try to be as helpful and as cooperative as we can. And it sometimes takes some time and for the landowner to come around and say, well, you know, the reality of it is that something's gonna happen in downtown Highwood, and eventually I'm gonna have to get on board. And we're at a juncture where we've been negotiating with the landowners for about 4 or 5 months, and it seems natural to us in this process of acquiring properties for the redevelopment, that it takes this kind of time for people to get comfortable with the idea that they're going to sell the property that they've had for 3 or 4 generations. That being said, we've been, you know, as generous as we can with our pricing of the property. In the worst case scenario, we're probably offering 50% more than what the fair market value for that property is as the developer. That being said, we are making some inroads with the majority of the property owners. Again, we've been, I draw back to our experience recently in Fox River Grove, where it's taken us 9 months to get to the point where we have 8 of 11 agreed to. So, and you know, very shortly we'll be done with that. We were given enough time in Fox River Grove so that we didn't have to approach them for an extension. But, you know, we felt as if Highwood was a good enough project that we would go ahead and risk our time and money and get to the point where everyone felt comfortable with going forward. And we feel as if that's where we are today. That's where we are in our mind, and we're the ones that are spending the money. So we predict that it'll probably take us, you know, hundreds of thousands of dollars to get to approvals through you, and we're willing to risk that money to get a plan that is acceptable by everyone. So we're asking you to work with us on that.
So I don't recall, it's just a 6 months extension is what's proposed, is that correct?
Right, and I think this, when does the 6 months initially
I
expire?
believe our original,
April?
I believe our original MOU was signed October 7th.
What do you, and I guess we're not really metric driven here, but where do you think you could be by April 7th in the scheme of the whole project? Not the project,
That
but
depends a lot on, you know, on the cooperation that you and your council lend us in accomplishing that goal. Okay, well, we're all in, okay? We're spending our money, we're ready to sign contracts, and so on. If there are any obstacles that need to be overcome, they need to be overcome by the cooperation of the city council and the city officers. So,
What do you mean by obstacles?
any obstacles, whatever they might be, development obstacles, property ownership obstacles.
How can we help with property ownership obstacles then? So,
we negotiate. The city buys, they buy, and then
I'm not making any suggestions whatsoever. The city has powers that a private developer does not have when it comes to the redevelopment of public property in their city. And yours is one.
eminent domain. That's the power we have.
do we, for something like this?
We do. What other questions you guys have?
Do you feel at this point in your negotiations with the private landowners that an extension is helpful to you, giving them the thought and the possibility that they have more time to procrastinate making a decision?
No, that's why we're pushing the, you know, the situation now. we don't want to miss this coming year's building window, let's call it. If we don't get something done now and move this thing forward and get into planning and get in and make a decision on what is going to finally be built, then you can shelf doing anything with this project for at least another year.
Right.
And, you know, if you don't know enough about what we're doing, then, you know, obviously, you know, we're not gonna make that schedule. But I think we know most of the obstacles that we have to overcome, and I think we've identified ways in doing that. So we're just asking for the amount of time to finish it up so that we have time to negotiate our development agreement with the city, the TIF agreement, and get it done in a fashion. We have a lending community that is prime. We have lenders that we have a long history with that are interested in financing the project. We have investors that are interested in the equity portion of the development. So we don't see that timing could get any better than what it is right now. But to make that timing, it's time that we all rolled up our sleeves and really get to work and finish this thing up. So we've been negotiating for several months with all of the landowners, and they all feel comfortable enough. Well, most of them feel comfortable enough with the contracts that they have. But we're finally at that point where we have to, you know, it's time to play ball. I mean, these sellers have to play ball. And if we can't get everyone under contract, then obviously we'll walk away. But we're not there. We're not at that point. We still feel as if we have a better than average shot at getting this done. So I don't know what else I can say to make you comfortable with giving an extension, but you know, I think it's imperative that we move forward together. Because as it is right now, if I were completed with my initial portion of this, we still wouldn't have enough time to negotiate a TIF agreement between us and the city before our MOU runs out. So, at very least, this is you know, a point where we're saying, well, we're going to go forward or we're not.
But was the
So that's
MOU,
up
was
to
the
you.
MOU designed to align the properties though, wasn't it? I mean, once you purchase the properties, I mean, that was the display of the MOU, right? Was to show consolidation to the property owners that the city supported your project.
Correct. And that was the purpose of tonight's meeting with all of the landowners.
Right.
To show that there was a unified understanding between the city and the developer.
But you're pretty comfortable that by April, you'll have all these properties wrapped up?
Absolutely. If not, then we'll all know together.
And I think that's, yeah, I'm fine with, I mean, that's really what it comes down to. We just want to make sure that, obviously, you're all in. You know, the project is a good project for the city.
It is.
The key is that we want to make sure that the time you've been given is enough time to get the property owners in line, if that makes, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah. I mean, that's why we requested a year at the onset. Okay, and then I explained to you why we backed off and accepted 6 months to try and get it done, that I thought that we would be far enough along within that first 6 months that we could tell whether or not we would have to ask for an extension. Well, we're at that time, so we don't have enough time now to negotiate out the TIF,
Right.
where we are with the project, but we feel as if we've made enough headway and there's enough support for the project in general that we should move forward.
Right, I don't think you'd be asking for it if you weren't willing, like you say, to invest your time
Correct.
and money.
Correct.
If you felt it was a project that didn't have the likelihood of moving forward. So it's you, based upon your conversations with the landowners and your conversations with the city, that you're still in favor of it and willing to invest additional time and money to try to make this project go.
That's
So,
correct.
You know,
I said, I'm, this is me personally, I'm okay with the extension, but there's two issues. One, with the TIF, I'm not certain, I'd be interested, you know, the mayor, whomever is gonna go through in those discussions, that we're gonna have the sufficient funds to assist the completion of this project through TIF assistance. I don't think we're gonna, that's just me, that we're gonna have that, so it's almost an exercise in futility if there's significant TIF money that's gonna be needed, but I guess we can address that later. The other thing I just wanna make sure that I didn't misunderstand was, it seems to me, and I'm not a developer, but if this went through smoothly and quickly, 2017 would be an early time to have construction commence. You didn't say that you thought construction could commence in 2015, did you?
Yes.
You honestly think, how can you have construction start in 2015 if you don't even currently have contracts with all the owners and you're asking us to possibly use eminent domain? That's not gonna get resolved in 2015. And you're gonna break ground in 2015?
Yes, we are. We're gonna
Then
break
that's
ground,
what
we're gonna
makes me a
try
little
and
nervous
break
then, 'cause I
ground
don't-
in July or August of 2015.
Okay, I don't understand how that is a reasonable expectation when you don't have all of the property owners on base and you want us to use eminent domain, which, and you, I don't
It's a
know.
long
that-
time.
I'm
do
not
quick
asking
take.
you to use eminent domain,
No, but I'm
sir.
saying that if you get there, you don't even have those in place, you haven't gone through a TIF, and you're needing 6 months, if I just do the months in, and looking at the construction schedule, this is where it's, to me, it doesn't seem realistic, and I don't understand, maybe you can educate me as to how, as of April, is not enough time to get the rest of the property owners on page, get a TIF agreement done. So we need another 6 months, which pushes us to October. Right?
No.
That's 1 year from, it'd be October.
That's
7th.
1 year.
Seventh, yeah.
So you need another 6 months.
We've always said we needed 6 months to do this.
No, but it doesn't
okay?
matter if we
No,
gave you the year before
let-
or
Let
not.
me explain where
But no,
we
hold on
are
a second.
in the process.
If we gave you the year before, let's say I'm not even giving you extension, it still gives you to October, okay? And you're assuming by October, we're gonna have our TIF agreement done, complete development plans all approved through the various bodies that we have and completed, and then groundbreaking by November, that's what you think's realistic?
I think
Okay.
by August,
Yes,
Yeah.
before
All right,
that.
and then I have to rethink.
By August.
I don't understand, I guess somewhere I'm the glitch. I don't understand how,
well,
We
we're
bid
very
this-
close to finalizing the acquisition part of this.
okay.
Okay, so we'll either push it over the edge or we won't.
Well, what's the extension for that? I thought the
Because they're not gonna
extension was-
have,
The
they're not gonna
extension-
have the agreement between
The
the
property
TIF,
and the TIF
the
study.
TIF and them and the TIF by April. It just won't be, it
Even if
takes
they
3
have that
months.
done-
That's a
We have that done by April. They still have to get all the design plans through us.
we're working on this simultaneously.
You've been ramming it through me.
You
The
have
6
people,
months isn't used for that, it's to get through the process. My understanding is,
where you're
the
losing me on this
agreement-
is, and I was for this, is it doesn't seem realistic at all to me.
it's a pipe
And
dream.
all of a sudden now, we go from, we need extra time because it's not done, to it's gonna break ground in August. When, where are we at in design? You just said before you didn't know where the design of the building was, when we're gonna do whatever it takes, and now, which architectural plans, unless you have, your architect's only working on your plans, and no one else's, I just don't see how he's gonna turn around complete plans and specs that quickly to get one reviewed by us, and then after the plan and zoning, and everyone goes through the PUD process, and then turned around. That's where you're losing me. I don't, maybe this gentleman can explain it better.
Okay, if we have all the land contracts signed by February 1st, that's another 2 weeks, or 10 days, okay? We will have all the zoning and TIF applications in by March 1st. That gives us March, April, May to go through the TIF process and concurrently the zoning agreement process. So then we have June and July to finish our working drawings and submit them for engineering and architectural permits. We can be in the ground conceivably in August, more likely September. That would be our plan. We would plan to have a 12-month construction period, and have the building get a CO in August or September of 2016. And that is all doable if we don't run into any unforeseen obstacles and we have the cooperation of the city. With respect to the TIF, this is the way the TIF operates. The properties at the present time are generating X amount of property tax. When our building is completed, it will generate Y amount of property tax, which we are projecting to be in the range of $1.75 million per year. The difference between the present taxes and what we will generate is called the tax increment.
Right, I know how it works.
That amount of money
Right, you want to take some of that
is,
back into the queue. I just
that
wanna make sure
amount of
you have enough
money
to pay the bonds
can,
as well.
yeah, that amount of money can be allocated for 23 years to the development. And either the increment can be paid back to the development each year for 23 years, or that income stream can be capitalized in a TIF bond.
Right, but we
Okay.
also, right, and I don't know how much of that we have,
So,
how much you want.
I can tell you
Hold on one
that,
second.
yes.
Hold on one second. That's fine. I understand how TIFs work in that increment and that you want some of that increment. I just don't know how much of that increment is available because our TIF hasn't been generating a lot of money over its life. You can correct me if I'm wrong, Scott.
No, the
So-
TIF you have presently is not the issue.
I know you don't want what we currently have in TIF, but we still have to repay the bonds, which we're gonna pay from the increment that's going to be made available through the developments that we're financing through the bond proceeds that we have issued. So we have to pay back the bonds, and Scott, you can correct me if I'm wrong, the TIF increment is what's gonna be, assist us in doing so.
That's correct. What we would do at the point of them developing the application is we then send it to our TIF
Right,
consultants.
and they'll go
that do
through
them.
it, so.
So they
This is
tell
where
us
the
whether
3
or not
months
it
takes
fits,
place now.
and whether it's not, it's a good
Negotiation
deal
of
for
it.
the city.
Right,
That's fine, I don't need, your timeline's fine, I understand it, it's just maybe I was not understanding where you're at. It seemed to me that the land acquisition issue was much further apart than perhaps it is. And I realize you're not gonna be done in 2 weeks, but I know that was your example. So that was my concern, is that you were 10 yards apart as opposed to 2 yards apart. That was it, so.
Well, the two main property owners are on board. All the terms have been agreed with them. There are two other property owners who we're still negotiating with, one of which we've agreed on price. That property owner has a tenant that will require some negotiation because the tenant has a lease. The other property owner, we're still in negotiations and haven't agreed on price. So that's where we are on those.
Okay.
So
All right,
we
great.
think we are very close and we can accomplish that. Okay. As far as the TIF is concerned, we have to sit down with our TIF consultant and your TIF consultant. They have to agree on what the TIF gap is,
And go through.
what items can be paid out of the TIF for our development, and how much money our development will contribute to your TIF, and will there be enough money to meet your current TIF obligations and any new ones that are incurred.
Okay,
And all of that goes into the mix in figuring out whether or not this will be feasible. Now, I can tell you that having done TIFs in the past, that the TIF increment on this development will support more than the amount of TIF money that we would need to make this development feasible.
very
Which
good.
will be demonstrated to you
Yeah.
at the onset.
Once we figure out all the numbers.
application.
Right.
I was just wondering how it all fit into the timeline. So,
It's an aggressive plan.
You are correct, it's a tight
It's an
timeline.
aggressive timeline that you hope
Yes,
to meet.
it's tough, it is tight, but if we all work diligently together and we can get the,
This was all at Brad's
right,
thinking, by the way.
the, if we can get the
Brad said so.
recalcitrant,
Make your presentation.
No, I thank you, I appreciate you
Okay.
stepping up, I appreciate it, thank you.
Thank you, Doug.
Thank you.
All right. Any other questions?
I'm good. I'm fine.
What was the, Matt had a couple, what were Matt's issues?
He had,
The main question I remember
his main
from
was the
last week
physical
was the-
structure and some of the, possible the height issue, and he wanted some clarification in terms of what the number of stories was. Was it 4? Was it 7? Was it 4.5? Was it 5.5? Exactly, more of a succinct definition of the physical building. And I think primarily as it pertained to the height.
I think that's accurate, I'm not,
What
go
else?
ahead.
That's all I was aware of.
I think it was the height, right? That was his
That was
biggest.
his biggest thing, yeah.
Yeah, that was from day one. He was always, concerned with the height. Well,
Big in
He's concerned with apartments versus owners, condos, but primarily.
Yeah, it was this, right, that's my understanding, I don't want to speak for him.
when we first got involved and we made our first presentation of the preliminary plans, it showed a building with 244 units, 5 stories above 2 levels of parking, which would have made it a 6.5-story
2
building.
levels of parking, that would be for city.
Half a level is down below because of the deck parking, so it's like 6.5. And what's become a question in our minds is, depending on whether or not we have to build around or over some of the existing properties that are there, and other financial issues, we may have to request another floor, which would make it 6.5 stories
Crappy places.
above the 2 levels of parking,
Can you phase
instead
that
of
back?
5.5. It's about 73 feet high
And then,
And
at
can
that
you,
juncture.
the concern is you go straight up 73 feet right from the street.
Correct.
You'll have people having a heart attack. Is there a way you can phase it back off the street, but go high?
that's
In our
Okay.
design and scale it back?
okay.
Yes. That's our builder.
Areas, and then here we
Speaking.
have,
Because you don't want to stay, as you're walking down the sidewalk, also you're looking straight up,
wait, no, this is Maria's and Curry Head here.
where 2 stories, 3 stories, and then back up 6. I'm not saying how to build it. I'm just trying to,
No, I think all of that we'll have
All
to
right.
take into consideration
Stop.
during, our presentations,
do they-
but
because
we'll
there's,
have, we'll probably come in with a couple of different scenarios and get started with that, knowing that, this is on the front burner. We're gonna, turn these drawings around, we're gonna turn this around so you have decisions to make. We're gonna involve you on the whole step of the way, so, we're ready to roll up our sleeves and get to work.
okay. Great.
Okay,
Anybody
thank
have
you
any
so
other
much.
questions? Chris, anything?
No, I'm good.
Andy?
I'm okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Doug.
So for the next step for that one, we'll have an extension to the MOU at the next committee of the whole and city council meeting to
Okay. Just put it on the cow for
just
right
put it
now.
on the, I'm sorry, on the what?
Cow.
On the cow? Okay.
Okay. Appearance Review Committee, Water Tower Design. I heard say Ferris didn't work.
That's a lot of dough, man.
The only thing,
We brought the,
this one,
our water tower repainting project. We've just gone out to bid with that and have the numbers back. As we're moving toward that project, the next step is to determine how we should paint the tower. Adrian brought that to the Appearance Review Committee last week, and the committee recommended that we utilize our current city branding and logo, the Celebrate Highwood, with a stem that's a deep leather brown color with a red and orange Celebrate Highwood logo on a white background for the tower. Just wanted to bring that forward. Did I get that right, Adrian?
I can't envision that sound.
You have a picture of it in color?
No, I have a picture of that, I know what that looks like, of our water tower with the leather.
But the leather's the same color that you saw that Pesca brought.
I have, try to do it this way for the group.
No, I know what this looks like, but I just can't envision the water tower brown on bottom and orange on top with that.
It's not orange on top, it's white on top.
I thought it said orange.
Yeah, this is the logo
Can you say the
itself.
stem or something or whatever?
Stem is brown.
The stem is leather brown, the top is white with the
Wait.
logo that says Celebrate Highwood that has the orange, red, and black in it.
Said, I mean, record the tower stem leather brown and having the head of the tower red and orange.
Oh,
I'm
red
sorry,
and orange,
right,
Celebrate
with the
Highwood's
white
logo.
back- with the white.
The white background.
So no, we didn't have an artistic rendering or any of that stuff done at this
pumpkin thing on
point.
Does the brown and white look strange?
No.
Put a stem on there.
Sure.
The classic look.
And you have,
It's good.
Okay.
the one thing about, you have Joe Davis on Paul McCartney.
They have good, yeah,
Good with the,
colors.
So I can
and
blame
taste.
Paul McConey.
So they're good for it.
Ben.
They're okay with it?
They said, that's
they're
what they
the ones
wanted.
that- they're the ones that came up with the concept.
We're good then.
I mean, they're more. All right.
Okay, is that what we're gonna put that as an alternate to see how much it costs?
Well, we actually have, when we were preparing the bid documents.
We put it in.
It was a couple years ago. We had several different options. So now that we know this is the option and we have all the bids, we can send that back to our consultant who's gonna figure out which one of these that fits into. And, we hope to have the entire project on for council approval at the next meeting.
I mean, you're talking about additional paint costs, right?
Correct. There were different levels of
expensive.
painting depending on how we were trying to
Brown's
do
not
things.
expensive color.
It goes
Yeah,
back
the stem itself would probably not be a major cost increase, because you're doing the whole thing. What really gets involved is really the intricate details of the
Well, the
of
country
curves.
club,
So
like,
right,
the
right,
entire brand doesn't do it.
Right?
We
Sure.
can cut some stencils ourselves.
Okay, all right, that looks good.
Brand will go up there.
Nice.
He'll put his name on the bottom.
Please do. Whatever it takes. All right. Personnel manual,
Looking good.
Highwood employees, thank you very much. This is all three sections put back together with the necessary changes.
Yes, it is.
Anyone have any questions on that?
No, good job getting
job.
it done.
Thank you very much.
Let's vote on it.
Yep.
I didn't expect to have it that easy.
6.5, it's the little things we stumble upon.
Yeah.
6.5, resolution authorizing the city manager to employment agreement with Director of Parks and Rec. Any questions on that?
No.
Wait, who is it?
Thank you very
Ivan.
much.
Never mess with evil.
Nope.
Never miss. Got it.
He's the only profitable department we have.
He's awesome.
Sorry, chief, but it's true.
Well, he's.
He makes money for
We're
us.
not supposed to be profitable.
I would like to see you turn the fire department into a profit center.
Oh, excuse me, $1 million, please, don't put your fire out, otherwise, no call. Thank you.
Can you sign right here?
They put on shows during
That's right.
the
Okay,
stage. And
that's great. 7.
All right, where are we with that? Okay. Amending the Highwood City Code regarding officers and personnel. Tell us a little bit about this one, 6.6?
Yes, right now we have a lot of items codified in our city code, including things like vacation time, holidays, for both non-union personnel, police personnel, fire personnel. A lot of these things are, especially for the contractual employees, a little more fluid. Those are items that are generally kept in personnel manuals and not changed and recodified each time. Because we also have 2 different areas to have them, we want to make sure that we have only one thing out there. So if we do change them, we change it to the personnel manual and make sure there's not another city code out there saying something different.
Yeah, exactly.
So we'd like to try to take a look at some of these codes bit by bit too. There's other items of cleanup in the same general area, such as community service officers, and specific language on those that eventually we'll bring to the council to clean up.
Is there an overall phrase that we could put in there that if this would,
Good point.
like we've done that before?
Yeah, we
Where
have.
this overrides anything that's in the.
Any points of contention, it goes to
It
this
goes to
event?
this,
Yeah.
right.
I believe there's something in the personnel manual that says that.
It would say that. The issue is just removing it entirely from the
So
city
can we
code.
put that in the code somewhere that they.
In this point-
Just as protection, saying, so there's no risk, I mean, no risk in doing it, but it would save our butts just in case something by accident was left in there, and they're gonna use that point as
Sure.
that, so we put something as the personnel manual overrides any.
From this point forward, refer back to a personnel manual for,
Put something in the code itself. That, yeah,
Yes.
we could do that absolutely.
We'll bring
Good point,
something
Eric.
back to the council on the February 3rd meeting on that.
Better safe than sorry, right?
Mhm.
We've run into these things before. Believe it or not.
I don't believe it. Okay, this is a discussion regarding marketing plan for upcoming referendum question. We're actually, staff would like to support the 911, not saying you didn't in the past, but in educating our public why we're looking to
So we get
increase.
the 2 votes back?
Right.
I thought it was 4.
3? Yeah, we
Well,
only
in
need 2
terms of
people.
2 votes, if it goes one way.
That's true, good
We
point.
tie then.
We need 3.
We need 3. 3 to win.
No, 2, because it goes back.
Do we know
Right.
2 people that are willing to change?
If you're watching us, please.
I just, a couple things I want to say before we get too deep into this conversation.
It was a very deep conversation, too.
It is important that city officials don't take any position on a referendum question. It's actually
We know that.
criminal, you could be held criminally liable if you do. So, discussing your personal stake or your personal opinion on whether to vote for or against is highly discouraged. When we look at disseminating factual information about a referendum question, that is acceptable and that can be done. And I think that's what Scott is proposing and looking to do, is to get out the facts about what this referendum question is all about, the numbers behind it.
Can we tell why we're doing it, though? I mean, I guess that would be the numbers, why we're doing this, right?
Yes, I mean, yes, we can do that on what the purpose of the referendum is, what the purpose of the 911 fund is, and the purpose of the increase in the fee for the 911 services.
What does a 911 fee do, by the way?
The 911 fee goes into a fund that we often pay our dispatching fees and other costs associated with operating a 911 system. So make sure that we have enough to continue operating and having the best system to respond.
How much is our dispatching cost annually, roughly?
Somewhere in the $125,000 to $150,000 range.
Just for both departments?
Combining both departments, that's a very rough number.
What is our $1 cover today?
Approximately $60,000. So really what you have is the other remaining taxes, such as your sales tax, your general corporate tax, that are funding 911 operations that at one point were considered to be, that they should be funded out of 911 surcharges.
So then,
Are you sure it's $60,000?
yeah, it's 60. I thought it was 90.
It's in a couple different places, so
I thought
that's
it
what
was
I'm
90.
hesitating a little bit, but it's about 78,000 per year for fire, and I wanted to say it was right around.
Oh, the dispatch, how much do we raise
No,
from
I'm saying how much
911,
you're
though?
raising from the 911.
I think
the
it was
dollar
quite
60.
that much.
60.
Probably right around there, 50, 60.
So the dollar will add another.
Yeah, that was the whole idea.
I didn't realize it was that much.
Yeah.
I thought
So now it's almost-
Somehow I remember it being
Because
less
when we
a
first
lot of
started
people
this, it
get
was
a
at
good landline,
90,000.
and it goes-
And we're paying it out of the general fund, the difference now?
Well, these are things that we
difference,
can
Yeah, the
develop.
difference.
We can develop all this stuff, and we want to really be able to get some of this information out there, because we don't want any other people to have any questions. So that's the kind of stuff that we can develop. And
Do
be
we
able to
know
get out.
how our 911 fee is versus that of surrounding communities, be it like Forest, Highland Park, Northbrook?
Well, it's just, we got that.
Verification of
when we
information?
switch over to Glenn.
I thought you were looking up 911.
I'm just saying, are we currently charging less?
For the surcharge, or are we
Yeah, for the
paying
surcharge.
more for the?
Well,
dollar.
For the dollar.
I don't know which communities have passed that referendum or not, but we can find out that.
I'm just
information
curious to
also.
see what other, our neighbors are doing, and, are we at the same, are we less, are we more,
I think
or
that sales
proposed to be
dollars
more?
coming in. So they
Yeah,
can
they have
allot it.
volume.
Yeah, well, that's true too, they have the volume, we don't.
Right. Any other questions on that?
So, if the marketing program itself, this was something Molly Keene in our office put together to show how we might be able to get the word out a little better. So we wanted to develop a lot of the answers to really a lot of the questions you're asking tonight, because those are the same questions residents will be having, and this is how we wanted to get that out there. So if anyone had any other ideas on how to do that, would be open to those. But if not, we'll just go and execute the plan.
Just from a legal perspective, my recommendation would be to stick to printed materials, be it posting on the website or dissemination, as opposed to live Q&A sessions. I think that's where you could run the risk of potentially going over the line from the factual information that's put out on a printed material versus if you start engaging in dialogue. It's just a safer bet, I think. And I think we could put together a pretty comprehensive Q&A, FAQ type thing to disseminate the facts of the referendum. But again, that's just my recommendation as to how to avoid any
agree.
potential.
And I'd reach out to the landmark once again, because I do believe that's something everybody gets hand delivered to their house, and maybe we can get them to inform this, Highwoodians of that.
The one thing I would mention too, and I did talk to Scott about this, if we start getting into spending more money to disseminate these facts, if you do get to that $3,000 threshold, you have to register as a local political advisory committee. Anybody that spends that amount would have to register with the State Board of Elections. So keeping it under that amount is advisable, not that we would
They
get up
might
to
do
that.
something like that just to do it. I mean, it's community, it's
Sure.
Adrian?
There's some good information on cityofhighwood.com already, too.
People just don't go there.
The numbers we have for this year regarding dispatch service is we've estimated 215,000 for dispatch service.
215?
Yeah.
215. We are receiving about 50,000 and E911.
So we're looking to double the E91. It's $1 now, right?
Still-
So it'll go to 2.
Yeah, but you're.
Let's go 3.
Yeah, why aren't we,
Going 4. Is there a reason why we don't go more than $1? Is it by statute or law that we can't go to 2? We could get $1 pass.
Putting the part aside that we can't pass one, I don't know why we would try more.
We'll just keep on putting $1 on
I think
each
if people said no
referendum.
to 2, they're no more likely to say no to 2 than they are to 1.
Well, worst case, can't we just put it on the, our tax bill?
doesn't matter, no.
It already is going on our tax bill
No,
in
no.
theory.
The additional, we just
You're
add
getting
it.
the additional
Yeah.
amount.
Yeah, you could.
Worst case,
Well, yeah, you could just increase your annual, the levy, your annual.
our levy.
Well, in theory we do because,
In theory, we do, correct.
right. Any other questions?
I have a comment.
Yes, sir.
My son lives in Libertyville. Anytime anything happens in town, I get notified by my cell phone. If the school shuts down, as it recently was so cold,
Mhm.
I get notified immediately. And so I don't have a landline that's tied to Libertyville, but my cell phone automatically gets called. Similarly, I found out by dumb luck that the water was out here.
Right.
Because I was passing through there when the water should be there. So I figured that water main break. But I got no notification on that at all, other than saying the evening news.
Did you, actually, to your point, which is what we also need to start a campaign on this, I think Andy and I talked about, briefly about that, is we do have it on our website. You can sign up and instant notifications.
Heard about this evening. Never heard about it.
It's, unfortunately, it's been on the water bills in the past, it's been on the website, it's just, I think it comes down to us going actually door to door, and we can't just take an email address because of the spamming that's out there nowadays. You actually have to go to the website, physically sign up, accept, and then go to what information you wish to receive, and there's like 20 different options. And emergency notifications is one of them, and it can do text or email, I believe, were the 2 options that were chosen.
That would be a good.
Yeah.
In response to one of your comments, I for instance, am a tenant here.
Mhm.
I don't get a water. It's all bundled with my rent. So using that as a means of communication only probably works for a landowner.
Yep.
But I bet you 30 to 40% of the population here rent. So we don't, I mean, I just heard about the website. But I think
Point.
if citizens, as like myself,
Mm-hmm.
we want to know.
Seriously.
Well, we want to tell you too. Yeah.
So if some of us
Voice concerns and disseminate information every Wednesday night.
Right.
might be able to
Have
articulate
a place there.
the issues as we see it from a consumer's point of view.
That's a good idea.
You're legally bound by certain things, as you should be.
Mhm.
But certainly from a consumer's point of view, all of my neighbors stick together. If one of them finds something out, it passes to everyone else.
Right.
That's why we were talking about the landmark and get an article written in the landmark.
The local
Well, my wife
papers.
told me today, we give an example, right? I was driving around town, saw the water out, went home, had water pressure, I started cooking. 3 hours later, I got no water pressure. I probably should have boiled in that water at that point in time. I'm guessing, I don't know. But certain information you need to know now, not when it comes out in the paper.
No, what I'm saying, as far as a landmark is concerned, is to give people, landmark goes to everyone's home. What we're saying to write an article in landmark is presenting the fact that the city.
Here's how you
has
do it.
Such, like, the website has such and such, sign up here,
I would certainly,
this is how you
I
can
would be
do.
willing to take a crack at trying to do that.
So that's why, as
That'd be
we
great.
said, as you're sitting here, we're
Hey,
trying to.
Scott, I'll get you his
the city's,
contact info.
We're taking, we've taken leaps and bounds, we feel, in the years, in the past, so many years in communication compared to how it was in the past. And it takes something like this sometimes to see where your holes are, unfortunately, but.
And there's a
at the
lot
same
of,
time, it's how we take advantage, it's how you handle the problem, right? You're always gonna run into problems.
Unknown.
You said, it's how you handle them. So right now, you're seeing how we're trying to handle it and fix it. Now, if you came back 6 months later and none of it's been fixed, then we really have an issue.
But I guess what I'm saying is that, I'm feeling like I wanna be able to communicate from a consumer's point of view with the rest of Highwood.
Yeah.
And so I'm thinking that, is there an article I could write? Not because it's sponsored by
Sure.
you, but purely from a consumer's point of view, who doesn't get access to the warrant bills and things like that, or even don't, you can sign up on the website.
Right.
For information. I bet you most folks in Highwood don't know you can sign up.
No, that's why we're saying.
Yeah,
we're
that's
gonna
why the-
have an
yeah.
article. We have a PR,
Yeah.
group, and they're gonna hopefully write an article.
I think the other thing we learned is that how fragmented it is to communicate to everybody.
And we have to
Some have
remember.
Facebook. You saw it on TV because we immediately said, get it out to the press. So, because
The
phone
press
calls,
wouldn't
I
have had
mean,
it if we didn't.
not everyone has landlines, not everyone has emails, not everyone. So from this, we're trying to take a step back, say, okay, where did we miss? What do we need to do better? And to your point, it is all about communicating, but there's not one good way anymore.
And Scott,
Jeez.
we should, and Eric, when you communicate, or whoever's can communicate with Elise, we should do this, because it is such an important piece in terms of public safety. It should be bilingual, if we can get them to
It
do
is.
something.
It was.
Landmark is-
The
No, I'm just, I'm
E911
wondering
was.
I'm wondering on the landmark if they can.
they don't
Oh,
have-
that, but
they don't do
when it went through,
I'm
because
wondering if they
mine,
would.
I got, I don't know, 6
Thank you,
voice
Adrian.
messages, 7 voice messages, and it talked about being bilingual.
Yeah. That's the other problem. Half our population is
Well, no,
non-English speaking, so it's.
The other thing, and I
Even more
mentioned it too, I mean, maybe one of the things we can do next summer is at the Wednesday market, is maybe have a city manned booth with
A computer.
register for 911 emergency, come here, register, we can have some,
I
literally.
nominate you for that.
I'm gonna be there in a different booth. I'll tell you about that later.
that's a lot of competition going on.
I'll be there in a different booth. But I think it would be a good idea that if we can do something like that, I would be happy to work there on
Yeah, I
an
would.
occasional, and represent the city as I do. But I think if we had a space there where we can sign people up and ask, let people come and voice their opinion, then it's a perfect forum to do that. And the community certainly comes out in large number to those events. So I think it's easy access to our citizens to do that.
So thank you, and thank you very much for asking. We'll figure out something. I know there's our website that, where could we have a letter sent? It'd probably be to one of the newspapers, if, as a consumer, because we are so fragmented. I think newspapers are the best way, unfortunately, in this area
You can write a
to
letter
to get
the
it.
editor also. Both Pioneer Press,
After everything I heard today, I absolutely think that Highwood consumers need to hear the issue from their perspective.
Yeah.
So it's like, it hits home for us, they actually get it, so they understand it. And that, we as citizens can do a better job communicating on top of the issue.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Absolutely. Thanks for speaking up. Appreciate it. I know we're running out of time here. Mabus, addendum to mutual aid box alarm system with FEMA. Chief, anything that this is housekeeping, or is this something that's new, or?
It's basically housekeeping. It allows us to get reimbursed through either Mavis, Illinois, or FEMA if we're deployed to Indiana, Wisconsin, someplace else.
Okay. Thank you. So if they call upon manpower is what you're referring to, or equipment?
Correct.
Okay.
Oh, that was in the last one.
All right, great. Thank you very much.
Yeah, it's just big.
Okay, 6.9 is El Buren again. As you know, we voted on that last week, except we voted in favor of, the way it was phrased, the way it was worded,
we had
was
to
that we
change it.
accepted the ARC's recommendation.
Right, we forgot to amend the resolution as presented since it was a denial, actually.
So this is what we're doing this evening, correct?
Yes.
That is correct, although when the motion is made, it needs to be stated that it's rejecting the ARC recommendation and improving the wall signage instead of exactly how it's written on here. But the resolution itself,
Oh, if we
that
had
is
an
what it
attorney
says.
present, we would have known.
no one was here last time?
We had no representation.
I'm just saying. All right, 6:10, a resolution designating the city collector as a coordinator for all ICMA plans. Scott, what's this one for?
I would call this one housekeeping as well. We have ICMA plans that allow employees to contribute to their retirements in a pre-tax way, similar to what you would think of as like a 401k, but it's a government version of it. We have other former employees or other representatives present on it. This makes it a position, so it's the official title of collector, plan collector. Any questions?
Any questions on that? We're all good with that?
The tracks.
All right, motion to adjourn this meeting?
Could I touch on a couple things?
Oh, yeah, wait, a couple new, new business.
Yes, just wanted to touch on briefly, the old Bertucci's site wants to come in for a special use. They're on the agenda for January 28th. For that site, they would need a special use and likely a parking variance. We're having them go through this process now, and if there are any other things that come up, we can have them come back through. But they want to break ground in mid to late February. So this is an expedited process to try to accomplish that if we want to do that. As mentioned before, we have the bids to repaint the water tower. They're on budgets. Last week we talked about putting a lot of our former meetings on YouTube. We've accomplished that with a lot of them, but are still working on the remainder. And the cable channel is no longer active for us. There might be some old meetings or things running as it's taken down, but it's no longer.
Can you put that on the website so people aren't going crazy?
Absolutely.
Can we do that right now?
Good suggestion.
Because residents will say, why don't we have, you know, my mother-in-law wants to see me on TV, you know.
I don't blame her.
These are two.
That's all I have. Thank you.
Anything else?
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Adjourn, couple minutes?
So where's Teddy gonna go?
I don't have the current agenda.